on year after year. I want more people, yeah. Somebody got to put a hand to the wheel. But who don't care in the long run, boy, don't feel. Rio Claro, Enterprise, Candy Grande, Sando. Somebody, 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 somebody run something. Somebody gotta do something. Begging for help is much how we get it. Youth, giant, we have the elders got to do something. Somebody got to do something quick, quick, quick. The human time of done started it. And if you don't do something and turn this thing around, when it pops, I don't know where they're going to run, 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 run. Them dance, Aranas, Amanti, Toko. Somebody gotta do something. Somebody gotta run something.
Somebody's definitely gonna have to do something as soon as possible. It's really, really getting sticky. Trust me on this one. Hey, good morning to you, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and to the rest of the Eastern Caribbean, wherever the star is being heard. Our good friends on the windward side, those who are making their way down to the beautiful Grenadine Isles, good morning to each and every one. If you're making your way up to mainland, have yourselves a wonderful one today. Mariekwa, folks on the leeward side, on the windward side, gotta say a very good morning to the hard-working farmers as always. They always lock it down on their lands. Yeah, man, while they attend to their crops and their animals. What about those on the JLB as of all year clock? Good morning to each and every one. And to tell you what, right now we've got the On The Records program. It's solo today, right? Yeah. But as you know, On The Records, yes, it's second. You understand here, the Good Morning Comrade program, #1 talk show right here in SVG. And in second place is the On The Records program, as we say good morning to our comrade there, Mr. Carlos James. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Monique. Good morning to all of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, those who are tuned in the diaspora. I want to say good morning and welcome to yet another edition of On The Record here on a Tuesday, beautiful Tuesday morning here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Of course, I had a very special visitor yesterday in my office, and I want to shout out to a good comrade, Will Davis in North Windward, an excellent faithful servant of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and has served the country in various disciplines, and of course I think was a few years ago returning officer in the constituency of North Windward. I was really happy to see him. He paid a visit to the office. I want to say good morning especially to him. He said, I very often listen to you on the program, on the early morning comrade on the on the record program. I want to shout him up especially. Sister Velty in Chateaubelair, he crossed my mind just this morning. I'm wondering how you're doing, and I know you're locked on to the program. I'm going to give you a call and pay you a visit very soon. And they're comrades who, from time to time, you remember who they've been with our political party, with our process. Since the formation of this Unity Labour Party. I want to say good morning to all of you, every single one of you. Those of you who were here with us in the journey as early as 1994. I want to say a special shout out to Sir Louis. He's in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I saw him a few days ago. And I want to say a special good morning to Sir Louis. And I know he's probably locked on this morning as well. Joined the parliament with Sir Vincent and Comrade Ralph in 1994. And that's where the foundation began, the movement that we now see, this mass political party. And we must never forget those who started this journey with us. It has been a very long and successful one. And we continue to rebuild, we continue the process of advancing the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And of course, the policies of this great mass political party. They are socially democratic in its formation and structure. And the people whom we serve, majority of them, are traditionally, as Monique said very early at the start of the program, she said she's shouting out the farmers, the working people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You are and you have been the bedrock of this political party. The fisher folk and the farmers and those who are small business operators and entrepreneurs across the very communities that make up St. Vincent and the Grenadines and what we represent. It is of course your commitment to this political process, and it is your commitment to this mass political party. And I don't ever want us to forget the people who were here in 1994, the people who joined in 1998, and of course those who fully embraced and came on board in the process in 2001, and those especially who are still standing firm with us. That is important. Your contribution and support is important to this process. And when some people say, well, we don't mix up in politics. And it's not so much about mixing up in the political process, but you have to understand that the politics of what we represent, it forms our policies and our vision and what we set out as a mass political party forms policy. And essentially those policies then redound to the benefit of the people once you're in government, even outside of government, the work that you do in building a mass political movement. It requires a lot of hard work, a lot of commitment and discipline and dedication, and importantly, support from the people whom you want to serve. And I felt the need to begin to the program. When I saw Will Davis yesterday, it reminded me of the journey of this mass political movement. He's a bit down in age now, and slightly visually impaired. But I remember many of the hard-working stalwarts who have given of themselves to St. Vincent and the Grenadines of the process. And I as I said this morning, my mind went to Sister Veldy, who, without having to prompt her, every morning she would wake up and she said, I will pray for the political leader, and then who was then Prime Minister, and I will pray for you, and I will pray for the country. And these people who, their contribution, sometimes we don't see it in real tangible terms, but there is valuable contribution from people who, even in their own little way at home, in a prayer, in a thought, in a show of solidarity, in speaking to a neighbor, and sharing, importantly, the philosophy of our political movement and what it represents. And sometimes, very often, we take these things for granted, but I want you as listeners to these programs, Morning Comrade and On the Record, to understand and appreciate. We are here to work with you to rebuild the greatest mass political party that we've ever seen assembled in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we're going to do it. And all of us, we're going to get on board and we're going to do it. I want to start by apologizing for the absence of our lovely KMP, Kissel Melissa Peters, who regrettably this morning she's attending a funeral. I want to extend my condolences formally to the family, the Vera family and the Silva family, the loss of that young lady who was a student, I believe, of the Kingston, the convent. And she tragically succumbed to injuries following an accident on Beckway. That funeral is this morning, and Kissel, who is quite familiar with the family. Some of them are living in the constituency of West Kingston, and she graciously sent her apologies to the comrades. But I said, I still have to come and hold the fort, because there are people who, and I got another visit yesterday afternoon, and a comrade who came back from one of the islands in the north, and he said to me, I told my brother I was going to see you, and he said, give my regards to the fireman. He said, wait, I ain't going to see fireman from the soca artist, He said, no, man. Comrade James, as the man who bringing the fire right now on the record. And I said, well, I didn't even know he listens, So a lot of people listen to the programs, the morning program, and I believe Comrade Ralph will be back on as early as Monday. As he's out of the state, so that program would be on, and we will continue holding the fort. We will continue delivering on the message of this mass political party, and to hear your views, and to also share a lot of the concerns of persons in the country, and those who are locked in from the diaspora, because you want to hear what is going on. You want to hear facts. You want to hear factual information, not misleading information, but you want to hear accurately what is going on. And there are things we have done on this program. We have complimented the government on, and of course being transparent and being balanced. And of course there are things which we will of course continue to be critical of, constructively, that is, because we think it's important to provide that constructive critique, so that they can also, if the government functions, you benefit as a people, but we call them out when we think that they're not doing what is necessary and needed. And very often I know comrades would meet me and they say, tell the comrade, you're giving them too much help, you're giving them too much ideas. But importantly, if St. Vincent and the Grenadines fail, you as a citizen, you're residing here, you will feel it. And right now, because of the mistake, a lot of us as comrades who went out in November 27th and may have, opted for another option. And we did warn you. We did say, well, we are going to see some challenging times if you shift course. And then the other side said, no, man, we have a magic wand and a magic formula. And their CBI is going to fix everything. And every issue we're going to resolve, and we're going to put lights on hard coats in every village, and we're going to do this, and we're going to, and they promise everything from now till thy kingdom come. And a lot of you believed. A lot of you said, well, it's time. Let's give somebody a chance. Like if it's the lottery, Monique, and we did caution you. We did say to you, we are at a crossroads, and the road we take, whether we go left or we go right, will determine the direction St. Vincent and the Grenadines goes, and the challenges we will face going forward. And now we're seeing, just like a true prophet, you're seeing and you're feeling the challenges that we're experiencing now as a country because of those decisions which we took then. And when we did caution, as it relates to that, many persons didn't believe, but you're feeling it now, and it saddened. It saddens us to know that we are heading in the direction where we are going now, in the path of. I understand there are still persons who have not been paid, who are working in the government service, You see what is happening now with Vinlec with your bills. We're going to talk a little bit about these things today and continue the discussion. And sometimes you wonder if all of this, the leadership that the ULP brought, made it look very, very easy, but it was challenging and very, hard to navigate. But we made it look very easy. And the other side walked in with an L plate, thinking, well, they had the formula. And CBI will be the savior for everything. And they are yet to bring one bill to the parliament as it relates to the CBI program, which, according to them, is going to provide enough revenue. When we see other countries of shifting away from it, other countries are saying it is not sustainable. They are the ones who are saying this is what we're going to do. So we have a lot to discuss today. We're going to talk about this outbreak at the hospital. We're going to go a bit into that. There's this bacteria, there's this crab outbreak. We're going to talk a little bit about this interesting visit to Taiwan. Many of you would have heard the report of an official delegation headed by the Prime Minister heading off to Taiwan. We're going to talk a little bit about the hypocrisy of that and what would have led to that visit. And of course, some information on as it relates to the reopening of school, and some misinformation that is out there, which I'm going to put on the record here this morning. So let us share the information. If you're on socials, I want you to share the page. Inform. It's on Star Radio. So if you're locked in on Star Radio on Facebook, I want you to share the page and call a neighbor if you're home. Tell them turn their radio up, turn their radios on. And of course, if you continue to listen and you're among family, turn your own volume up and let persons, when we communicate, there's information that is shared for everybody. When nobody's going to say, well, I heard of this by a third party. You heard it from your own voice here on the program this morning. I want to begin. Let me shout out a few comrades who locked on. I know very early Val is on. I don't know if she's still in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Good morning, Val. I know you were taking a short break, vacationing at home. Welcome back if you're still here, and if you have left, well, I know how these things go sometimes. Monica Hooper is on, and I want to say good morning to you. There's Fekato, Glenroy Brown, Lenford, and very early I saw comrades like Lavon and Annette Vera was locked in, and I believe I saw Annette Mack as well tune in. Persons, Peter Jacobs, yes, you're on, and good morning to you. So there are quite a few comrades who, Catherine Crook, who's here, good morning as well. Darky, I haven't seen you yet. Maybe you're on, but I haven't seen you yet. Darky, good morning. And we have Shalda Pompey France, who's just signaled that she's on and listening. So it's share. I want you to share the Facebook Live and Gart, who's in and locked in and watching. I want to say good morning to you as well, Gart Alexander. We have Arlene Gilbert, who's on. Good morning to you. Yes, Darky. She just acknowledged that she's in, and Alex Antoine and Marlon Wilkinson, who's also locked in as well and listening. I believe, Marlon, you're in the UK. Good morning to you, or afternoon to you, if that's the case. So we have quite a few comrades who are in very early. And Daki, you would appreciate that I'm on very early today, because as you know, as I said, Kisal, who had a funeral to attend. So when I came very early at 10 on the spot to start, I met Monique still setting up. I said, well, I just want to put that out there. So the program, those who are listening will know we were ready to start at 10 sharp. But, we had to get the screaming up and get things going so we can accommodate those listeners and viewers who are on social media. So Again, I see Clarence Wiley who's in. Yes, there's Judy Neverson. And good morning to all of the comrades who are locked in and listening to the program. I see Miss Days who's tuned in all the way from Georgia in the United States. Good morning to you. Morris Small, who's here as well, who's now locked in, and Sylvia Bailey, yes, good morning. All of the comrades who are coming in. I don't know if we were still having some technical challenges with the streaming, but because I'm seeing the amount of people have shouted here is more than what we're seeing as the ticker who the total views. But I know there are quite a few hundreds of people who already tuned into the program, and of course those who are listening, whether you're in North Windward and North Leeward in the north, all the way in the south, in the Kingston area, the suburbs of Montrose, Camden Park, and Murray's Village, Sion Hill, those in Maracua Valley, those over in West St. George, East St. George, South Central Windward, North Central, good morning to you. Those especially in Central Leeward, I want to shout you out as well. Those in South Leeward, the northern and the southern Grenadines, especially in Union Island, our comrades in Union Island. There are a few good solid comrades in Canawan. I want to shout you out as well. Good morning to those who are listening. And wherever you are across St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and if you are in the region, whether it's in St. Kitts, Trinidad, Barbados, Antigua, BVI, wherever you are, good morning to you, and especially those further in the diaspora who are in Canada, the US, the UK, and you're not able to keep abreast with what's happening in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This is your program, and you are tuned into On The Record. So I want to start by touching, and I see Dulcie and a few others have joined, since joined, and Ronald Hunt is in Barbados. Yes, I want to Kim in North Central. So the persons are coming in and they're share. What I'm asking you to do is share the information, share the page, the Star Radio page, so we can get the information out to persons far and wide. So I want to start by this information which came to the public's attention just yesterday, in the afternoon of the 10th of August. We heard the information that the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital is currently grappling with what is considered a critical infection control situation, following reports of several patients having been tested positive for a multi-drug resistant bacterium. And the short of the acronym for it has a very long name, a carbapenem resistant Acinetobacter bacteria. And the short for it is CRAB. And that bacteria is now spreading across the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital. The issue now becomes a very serious one of containment, and it is an urgent public health threat to our medical facility. At least this is the only one we have heard of this reported incident of a spread. We don't know if there are other facilities, health facilities across the country, that this particular bacteria is now present. But what we do know is that our main general hospital is under severe threat, and there are health professionals who are now busy trying to focus on the containment of an outbreak of CRAB, which is such a serious and it's a very serious situation. And how serious is this? Is that there are antibiotics that normally would treat certain infections. And we have now seen a bacterium that is developed in such a way that it is now resistant to treatment. And that is where the concern comes in. How do we deal with containing such a crisis in our health sector? And what are the things and the steps that we can do to help as the public? And the first thing that I immediately looked at was how quickly this information came to the public. Because what we know we have to educate ourselves on this infectious disease and what it carries and what are the repercussions from it. So what do we know? There are restrictions on currently now being implemented on elective surgeries at the hospital. And what that simply means is that if there are severe surgeries, which some of them would require persons being on ventilation, some of it would require certain types of open surgeries, which can be considered critical. Those surgeries are now being put on hold. Because if you have an infected space to operate, you have an infected department within the, whether it's male surgical, female surgical, and so on. It then prevents you from taking on more complex surgeries, which the process and period for recovery would take some time. And with an infection that is, we call, resistant to medication. And once that is spreading across the hospital and it is not contained, it is going to have serious implications for our health sector. So that's the first thing. We know that there are elective surgeries now taking place. They have limit the amount of surgeries taking place, particularly if patients are critical and need emergency care, fine. But for all intents and purposes, they have chosen to have a restriction on elective surgeries. Currently, there is contact tracing taking place that has commenced to identify persons who are diagnosed, but also the source of the contamination. And that is what is taking place now, whether not just patients, but they are visitors to the hospital, they are medical staff that move from the hospital to their homes. And it now means that you have to also go into the communities to identify persons who have visited certain individuals, persons who have visited certain wards on the hospital, and families who have come into contact with whether it's workers at the hospital, patients at the hospital, or visitors. So there is a major operation now taking place in terms of contact tracing that is ongoing. What we also know is that the health officials, they have enhanced the infection prevention control practices. What that simply tells you is that there may have been a limited approach on how the prevention control practices were implemented. And I know they are very good and excellent health professionals in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And this is not to discredit the hard work of all of our health professionals. But as a precaution, they are now implementing an enhanced infection prevention control initiative, which will help to reduce the contamination at the health facility. Now, what are some of the common infections from this severe spread of this drug-resistant bacterium? Some of the common infections, ventilator-associated pneumonia, bloodstream infections, wound and urinary tract infections. So persons who are susceptible to some of these challenges, you have difficulty in breathing, You have maybe low blood count and so on, maybe sickle cell patients, persons who continuously affected with urinary tract infections and so on. These are some of the common infections that can develop from crab. And if it is that you come in contact with this bacteria, the infection is likely to spread to mostly some of those areas. Why is it dangerous? It is dangerous primarily because it transfers resistant genes easily, and it also carries a high mortality rate. I'm going to tell you what the health officials are not telling you. It transfers resistant genes. So that moves into your system, and it fights off medication. So you're trying to you have one of the common infections, and whether it's in the bloodstream, a UTI or a wound infection or pneumonia, the regular medication that you will take for these things will not work. And that is what the concern is. And if you have underlying issues, that is where the mortality rate now is a challenge to many of our patients who come into contact with this serious bacteria, because the underlying issues that you have will then be exposed if you cannot treat certain infections that develop, and the medication the infection essentially is non-resistant to the medication, resistant to the medication. So these are the challenges which I think why this is not something to be taken lightly, and the severity of this information that is there that the public needs to know. Now, what concerns me, and as I said, they're hard-working health professionals. I know they're working relentlessly to contain this thing. But what really concerns me is when we go now to administration of the health sector. I'm not referring to the doctors and the nurses and the auxiliary staff and the team who are working vigorously to contain this. We have to now move to the level of the state's administration in the health. The health hospital administrator, permanent secretaries, the Minister of Health, and the Cabinet of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, the question we have to ask is why this information is now coming to the public by way of a media release from the Ministry of Health on August the 10th, when I am reliably informed, and on the record, this program is reliably informed, that officials in the Ministry of Health knew of this outbreak since July the 17th. That is the part that is concerning to me. I've outlined what are the common infections of this crab. I've outlined why is the outbreak very dangerous. Transferring resistant genes, and if you have underlying issues, the high mortality rates that will come with it. And this is not to scare anyone, but this is information that I think you need to know, and the public needs to know this information. We know that there are restrictions now on elective surgeries at the hospital. We know that contact tracing has commenced. And we know that they're now feverishly working to put a regiment or program in place to what is called prevention control practices, to ensure that the rate of the infection is reduced. But the question I have to ask is why it is that this information is only now coming to the public by a release. There are, I am hoping the information I have is incorrect, because health officials have informed me that this was something known to the Ministry of Health, and unofficially off the record I'm told that this came to the attention of health officials by July 17th. And if that is true, I'm hoping the information is incorrect, and I'm hoping that the ministry who's listening can then come to the public and say, no, well, this is not the case. We only found this out maybe 2 days ago, 4 days ago, 5 days ago. We had to assess what the situation was, and then provide what is called a prognosis as to how we intend to treat and contain, and then we had to bring the information to the public as quickly as we could, and all of this came to light within the last 24 to 48 hours. I am hoping that the ministry can say that, because what information I have is that since nearly the middle of July, this was brought to the attention of the health authorities. And if that is the case, it is quite concerning. And further to that, to issue a press release, something of our main hospital, and you may say what you want about the Milton Cater Memorial Hospital, but it serves predominantly, it is our major health facility. And to have such a serious outbreak that you have not had the opportunity to properly contain it, the fact that you're doing contact tracing, it means now you're leaving the compound of the hospital and you're going into communities, you're going into homes to do testing. It means that the outbreak has left. And if that is the case, and it did not happen within the last 48 hours, it is quite troubling that if this came to the attention of health authorities since July of 2026, it is quite concerning that all we can see from the Ministry of Health is a press release, not a press conference. Which is what is expected and needed at this time. Our health officials need to come to the people and come to the media and say, look, this is the situation. Regrettably, we have to deal with this. We have not properly been able to contain this. We are putting corrective measures in place. These are the amount of patients we know to have had the infection. I don't know if there are any deaths as a result of it. But of course, if there are persons with underlying medical conditions, the cause of death is not going to be this particular spread, but it is going to be whatever the underlying issue is. So we don't know for sure and with certainty whether this has led to any deaths. But this is where transparency comes in. And this is where the public ought to know the information, and you ought to come to the media and to share this information in a transparent and honest way. Not by, and I understand that the release which was put out yesterday was recalled, and a second release came out this morning, about maybe 6 a.m. or so this morning. So you don't recall. And I read the first release. You don't recall it. You maintain that. That is the information that is available. But you do a supplementary release to say, subject to the release that came out within the last 24 hours. This is the additional information we're providing. And the public is asked to be at ease. This is not something that is widely spread in the communities, and there needs not to be any panic or alarm. And by highlighting it here on this program, I'm not in any way trying to create any public alarm regarding this outbreak, but I'm just providing the information that I am aware of and the serious nature of this thing and our inability so far to properly contain it. The measures that are implemented now are admirable, but it is of concern to me that if it is that this outbreak started since in July, why it is that we're only now having an official release from the Ministry of Health. And I'm hoping that the information that came to me is not accurate, because I would like to think that we're more responsible than that as an administration. As soon as we're very clear on what this infection is, the diagnosis is there, we've assessed what it is, we come to the public and we say, look, this is the situation. But my information is telling me health officials knew about this before 24 hours ago, way before 48 hours ago, and certainly before a week ago. And I don't think that is sufficient, that is good enough. And then to just put that information in a press release, no. You have to come to the public, issue a press conference, provide the information, take questions from the media who may have queries as to the nature of this thing, how far widespread is it, how many persons have been affected, what is in the numerical data to support the argument that this is a spread. These are questions which nobody in the public is aware of. And it's important for us to have that information available. It's important for the Ministry of Health to be responsible and to provide that information. And like I said to you, they are excellent, hard-working, competent people within the ministry, our health professionals, our doctors, our nurses, or especially our auxiliary team. They very oftentimes, we overlook the hard work of the people who are on the floor, the auxiliary people who get things done, the maintenance personnel, the persons who ensure that there's oxygen available in the various surgical rooms and so on. Those stewards who move persons from the accident and emergency to your operating room, the theater, to the surgical departments. They are hard-working people who show up every day to provide service. So this is in no way discrediting the excellent work, I know, with the limited resources at their disposal. As a developing country, a small island state, we know all too well the challenges of small island developing states when it comes to health facilities and services that are provided, and equipment and medical support that is available. And they go there and perform, and they do well. So this is in absolutely no way discrediting the hard work of our health professionals, but the health administration, I want those persons in the health administration to take some accountability. Because if it is that this information is now coming to the public, but you were aware of this long before 48 hours ago, long before a week ago, which is what the information I have, the intel I have from some health officials, is that since July, there are persons diagnosed with this. Today is now the 11th day of August. And whether or not a press release is sufficient, I do not think it is sufficient for public consumption and information, to be alerted, to be aware of what the challenges out there. I do not think it's sufficient. And I'm surprised at the Ministry of Health, who normally would do good work, and their public commentaries and information, getting that to the public in quick time is usually commendable. But on this occasion, we have to question the timeliness of that information to the general public. And I just want to flag that here, because if it is now that you're telling me that you have not properly contained this thing, you have limited the amount of surgeries that are conducted at the Milton Cato General Hospital, you have now adopted a contact tracing a method of really identifying the source and the infected rate of persons who are out there. It means that this outbreak has left the hospital. It means that this outbreak has left the hospital. And there are persons who may be in our communities who may very well be seriously adversely affected, and they may not know this. But I know the capacity of the Ministry of Health. I know, I've seen them at work, and I know they can quickly contain this. So I don't want people to be alarmed by the information that I'm sharing here. But I am just really concerned that the transparency in which this information came to the public, whether or not sufficient notice was given, whether or not we have been transparent in providing the information, the accountability as it relates to how many persons were diagnosed, were there any fatalities as a result of this. All of these things, it begs the question, and we have to be all of us. There has to be an all hands on deck approach to dealing with this. So it is not just a health issue, but it now becomes a national and community issue. And all of us have to be vigilant. We will need certainly more information as to what are the signs and symptoms of this infection, so that even persons at home could be guarded and be on alert among their own families. So we have to be mindful of this thing. And as I said, we don't. There needs to be more information to the public. And with me highlighting this this morning, it is only just scratching the surface. And I want for the Ministry of Health to have health professionals coming to the media and sharing the information, educating Vincentians clearly as to the nature of this bacteria, how is it spread, who are likely to be at risk, what are the challenges they are facing, whether or not it has left the hospital, and what are some of the containment practices that they are employing to deal with this effectively, apart from contact tracing. And it is only the responsible thing to do to come to the media and come to the public and to share this information. I'm not a medical professional, so I'm asking those who are certified and trained within the field, those who are, especially those who are specialized in those disease specialists and so on, to educate the public on this information. It's important that we do that and be responsible about this thing. But as I said, I'm concerned that this information, if it is correct that the health officials were made aware of this since July, that we're now only hearing about this, that to me is a very serious concern. And it calls for an inquiry as to our health administration and its handling of this outbreak. I want to move into another subject which we spoke about, just a continuation of that last week as it relates to the education sector. And I noted then our disappointment with the delayed start in the school term. And many parents have expressed this. It's not. I noticed one of the online media outlets carried an article said, I am very disappointed. I just wanted to let you know, it's not just Carlos James who's very disappointed. I am here to share information which a lot of people communicate with me, and a lot of parents and even officials within the Ministry of Education were very disappointed that they were not able to properly get this thing right as it relates to the timely commencement of the school term. I heard a report from the Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, who was on a radio program, and interestingly enough, her response to the late commencement of the school repair program was, well, the schools were in such a bad state that Braxa could not take on the work by themselves, and they had to hire contractors, and we needed the extra week to onboard the contractors. And I want to let the public know that is such a misleading statement. And the folks on the program accepted that information. They said, well, maybe that's the case, and the ignorance of the host on the program not being fully aware that this is not the first time Braxa is hiring contractors to do work on the school repair program. In fact, I will tell you this. Majority of the programs, the school repair programs, are not done by Braxa. Braxa is the vehicle in which the program's operation takes place. But by and large, I would say give or take 80 to 90% of the work that is done are done by private contractors, and that has been the case for years. So Braxa would then go to the school, they do the assessments, prepare the budget, and the total budget, every school, every constituency, and then total budget, that will be submitted to the Ministry of Transport and Works, under which Braxa falls. That information then comes to the cabinet by way of the permanent secretary, and then drafting that memorandum to the cabinet outlining the budget that is required. And then it is approved. Then the monies are then released to Braxa, who then releases the monies, or an advance of that monies, to the contractors. They then enter contracts with private and subcontractors to do the work. It is never the case that Braxa goes in and takes on all of this work by themselves. So that was entirely misleading. And it was on this program that I had outlined just last week, and I said, it's not that the repairs were left. In fact, it's an indictment on the very Braxa if the Minister of State and the Ministry of Education will then come and say the schools were left in such a bad state of disrepair that Braxa had to bring in contractors. No. I explained on this program, sometimes, in fact, continuously throughout the year, there's a maintenance team from Braxa that goes to government institutions, including schools, and they do repairs. But I'll tell you what happens, and I've explained this last year. I said, listen, you have a situation where a lot of the children intentionally vandalize the schools. You go into some of the classroom, the light switches are completely ripped out, but then you will learn that maybe a month ago it was replaced. You'll see the last 2 weeks before the close of the school term, furnishing that was there, that was good furnishing, would then they would be turned into cricket wickets. They will be turned into missiles in fights and just general recklessness and vandalism. We know this. And it then is compounded by the multiplicity of all of these things taking place across all of the schools. And that is why every year you have to have this continuous. In fact, sometimes you're repairing something that was repaired last year. You're painting a school which was painted the very term before or the year before. Because what? Some of them, they take markers and they put on signs on graffiti and so on the walls. They do all different kind of things. And children are sometimes children. And they are, in fact, sometimes ill-disciplined. But by and large, they're good children. That goes to some of these institutions. But there is a serious state of vandalism in a lot of the schools by the very students who attend in these institutions. So sometimes the very money that is spent is fixing something that was fixed the year prior or a few months prior. It's a revolving cycle of just continuously repairing. Even the louvers in some of the schools, that is, you put in the louvers instead of windows and fancy blocks because of the ventilation. You'll be amazed. They will look at that and literally rip it out, shake it out if they have to. And then you have to then repair that. And this is something that is continuous. So to say, well, these schools were left in a state of disrepair, that is totally misleading and inaccurate. But the real issue that, and as I said, it's an indictment on the very Braxer who's commencing the repair, and they usually do good work and hire good skilled workers within the communities to do excellent work. But what I'm reliably informed, and those in Braxer they can come and retract, or they can come to the media to dispel what I'm going to say. But I am reliably informed that a significant part of the delay, apart from the poor handling of the administrative matters, in getting the right numbers and in terms of what is needed for furnishing, what is needed for this and that through the Ministry of Education and different. As Braxer had done all of their work assessment, but they were awaiting the release of funds. Because in order to hire the contractors, and again, either she's misleading the Minister of State in the education, is either misleading the public, or she herself is ignorant that every year Braxer engages contractors to do these repairs. And it's not that Braxer takes on the work themselves. About 80 to 90% of the work is done by contractors. And as I said, either she's misleading the public or she herself lacks the information or the knowledge, and she's just generally ignorant as to how these things work. I understand what obtained this time and why there's such a delay is that there was a delay in the release of funds to Braxer, because the release of funds is needed, it's necessary to then give each contractor an advance payment so that they can procure the materials. You hear me? So if you don't have the funding available to allow the contractors to go out there to start procuring, then you can't start. And then you start late. There's a delay in the start of the program. And just maybe a few days ago, there are some schools, materials are just being dropped off. Literally. And there are some schools who might still not be ready by the second week in September. Because if you're just dropping off materials by the middle of August, I know they're going to be working around the clock. Some of them are going to be working hard. And I want to commend the contractors and the teams within Brax and so on. But give them the opportunity to work and to function effectively. So the challenge was that the late release of the funds. And again, it goes to the management of resources. The state's administration's ability to effectively manage. The work that is needed across various parts of the government service. So these are how these things work, and rightly so, we suspected that this was going to be the case. Because if you don't zero in on these things and to ensure that there's a level of efficiency, you're going to have that challenge. And it is quite concerning if earlier we heard of this outbreak, and this with the acronym CRAB, this multi-drug resistant bacteria, and what is concerning about it? It is that the bacteria is not resistant to, Monique, okay, there's one drug. So then if it's resistant to this one particular drug, you then find an alternative drug that can create the cure to fight off the bacteria. It is a multi-drug resistant bacteria, meaning that several drugs that are available on the market, several medical treatment that is available on the market, is not going to properly contain this outbreak and this spread.
It is a frightening one.
It becomes very serious. And it becomes a very serious issue of containment and public information. And I go to the issue, and as I said, they're excellent working people, staff within the Ministry of Health, nurses and the doctors and the auxiliary team. But the buck stops with the health administration. How is this containment done? What information comes to the public in terms of education? How quickly does that information comes to the public, which also helps in the education and the containment? What are the signs and symptoms to look for? Who are susceptible to this infection, this spread? What are the challenges for people who have underlying issues? Which subset of people are now more vulnerable as a result of this? And you provide this information. What are the mortality rates, if any? What are the numbers in terms of people who are diagnosed with this? So if you're not able to properly put that information to the public, and all you can do is a press release, it goes back to how the breakdown in the administrative matters and how things are handled from the government. And I go back there to come back to the issue of the same school repair program. Because if you're not able to properly, effectively roll out the school repair program and give Braxton the resources that they need, how could schools be open on time? Again, it goes back to the administrative management of these various departments and government and government offices. And the poor quality of administration that is at play. And that is the case I've made here in relation to this. But do you think we enjoy coming to the public and highlighting these things? It is painful to see the mismanagement of what is taking place in health administration, in education, in energy security as it relates to VINLEC, because don't think I ain't going to touch that, because last week we spoke about it. A lot of people were openly critical of VINLEC, its CEO, who's an excellent manager, and the hard-working staff of VINLEC. That we don't beat up on VINLEC. You think VINLEC is solely responsible for our energy security? No, the policy on energy is set by the government and the cabinet of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And the sole majority shareholder of VINLEC. VINLEC is not privately owned. It's a statutory body. But it is owned by the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and administrated by a board that is appointed by the cabinet and the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I want you to understand that. It's not Jackson Graves that run VINLEC, and Correas, It's a board that is appointed by the cabinet and the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So again, I'm putting into context the breakdown in all of these things you're seeing. There's one source of the challenges that are spreading across, whether it's in the public sector and the statutory bodies and so on. Is how you administratively and effectively manage and governance. That is the root of what this issue is. So you go to the issue of energy security. The Prime Minister came to the public, made certain announcements. He said, well, we're going to cap the fuel surcharge. We're going to cap the price of fuel at the pump. These are the rates. And then everyone clapped and said, hooray, he has provided a solution to the situation as it relates to fuel prices and so on. We never said, no one blamed the NDP for the high fuel prices. And I understand it became a topic of discussion on another radio program that Camilo said that the NDP is not to be blamed. And he's quite right. We have taken a position to be a responsible opposition. Just like how we don't say the issue of crime is the NDP's fault and it's Leacock's fault. And it's Friday's fault. Because crime is also an issue that has many dimensions. Social and economical, and it goes to the anthropology of the human mind and the nature and the psychology and of our makeup. It goes to the heart of our communities and our families. It's not the fault of the churches. I hear people saying, "Oh, what are the churches doing?" Let's not let's not ask the churches alone to provide the answers. There's the family. There are our educational institutions, including our TVET schools that should be operating even outside of school hours for those young adults who have left regular schooling. There are community groups, sporting organizations and bodies, or NGOs, corporates in Vincent and the Grenadines, and the support that they give to NGOs and community-based organizations. There's, of course, the police, and there's the Ministry of National Security and the government. But we have never once said crime is the fault of the NDP. We've never once said what is taking place, the high cost of living now is the fault of the NDP. Because when we were in government, we were trying to explain to you that, look, there are external forces that impact on the cost of living in our country. There are also external forces that impact on our crime situation. The increase in firearms coming into our porous borders. The increase in illegal drugs that will come in. And if somebody is predisposed to do something, you think you think a church or a community can stop that? So we have never while in government, you heard many a times, in fact there were billboards up. The ULP is responsible for the state of crime. The cost of living crisis, the ULP is responsible for this. The cost of we have never taken the approach to turn those things into political footballs, because we recognize that there are external factors and forces. What we do challenge the current government on are the things that you're implementing now to cushion the fall off, to support the programs that we left that dealt with vulnerable families and communities and so on, to ensure that there were subsidies and provisions that we put in place. What are you now doing? Because you went and you had a press conference. You announced a number of measures that to be implemented. None of those measures are bearing fruit weeks after the announcement, because we're still seeing high fuel prices. We're still seeing high fuel prices at the pump. We're still seeing our electricity bills are high. And we're still seeing a significant increase in serious crime in terms of the amount of murders and the homicide rate that we're seeing skyrocketing. We're not blaming you. We're not saying it is the NDP's fault. But what we're saying are the measures that you take locally and domestically that should be implemented to cushion and to deal with the cost of living situation that is now existent, to deal with the fuel situation that is now a challenge, and our electricity bills. And of course, the security measures to deal with crime. We're not saying it's your fault, but we're saying you have to look at the solutions and the policies that are needed to be implemented to deal with these things, and whether or not they're being dealt with effectively enough. Because I can tell you, you would not have these kind of electricity bills under ULP government, because we know the poor and working people, they have to foot that bill. You would have never had that situation, for certain. The fuel at the pump would have been subsidized to a level where it would have been affordable for persons who are commuting. And I want to say, even on matters of national security, Very soon, St. Vincent will benefit from a ballistic lab. Not a full-on laboratory, but the equipment will be on the ground to deal with ballistic testing and so on. Spent shells, testing the source of where they're coming from, which firearm they might have been able to zero in on, which type of firearm or which the specific firearm was used to in an incident. All of these things, it's going to be a bit more scientific for the police and investigators and so on to handle some of the challenges we have now with crime. But guess what? When this ballistic equipment lands in St. Vincent, you will see a big parade about it, and the Minister of National Security is going to take the credit. But I want to tell you that has been in the works for some time through CARICOM Impacts, which deals with regional security. And St. Vincent and the Grenadines was selected as one of the countries to benefit from such a facility. I toured one of those facilities in the British Virgin Islands a few months ago. And I've seen the equipment at work. I've looked at how they're handling the situation there in terms of the criminal justice system and so on, with testing. And they also benefited. They were one of the first countries to benefit on the CARICOM impacts. And when it is St. Vincent's turn to benefit, you will see, in fact, this facility with equipment here in Ireland. But just know, you heard it here first, that there will be an enhanced level of investigation and support to the police through a initiative from CARICOM Impacts, which started, and I'm mentioning it now because it started way before the NDP government came to office. This is something, a decision was taken on this a few months ago, more than a year ago at least, to have St. Vincent and the Grenadines as part of the program, where we're doing enhancing the ballistic testing and so on. That is going to take place. So you have these situations where, people are riding on the successes or the hard work of the ULP and when the ULP was in office, and you're now seeing the fruits of the labor now. And of course, knowing the hard work of our comrade and the work that we did at a regional level with CARICOM Impacts, Leacock is going to say, well, I was the one who brought this ballistic testing machine here. Remember, I tell you this is going to happen. And similarly, it's the same thing that is happening in what is happening with the CPL, because I'm happy that we're able to have some CPL games. I understand the very investors whom I spoke about last week that they wanted to have a team here in St. Vincent. They came in on the island, and there was a meeting with CPL here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and some of the persons involved in sports administration. So I'm hoping that they would eventually become successful owners of a franchise here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But of course, all of the foundation and the hard work that was laid, and a lot of it, I will tell you, there are a few individuals who should take the credit, who are working closely with those persons, including Kesrick Williams, Annette Mark at the Tourism Authority, and a few other persons and so on. Minister Brewster was involved as well. But if and when those are the persons who become owners of a franchise to be based here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, of course, you're going to hear, well, it's the NDP who brought them here. But this was not their first visit to the island. Certainly not their first meeting with CPL and state administration. But I'm happy that they're able to know. Hopefully there's a green light for them to proceed. And by next year, I'm hoping that we will see that particular group owning a team here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But those negotiations started, including the hosting of matches here, in the interim to owning a team. All those discussions started previously. And I don't want, and I noticed the media took a line to say, well, as a team was, St. Vincent was blocked from owning a CPL team under the ULP. I don't want it to be a ULP NDP thing. Once there's success for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it's a success for all of us. So it's not a ULP thing. It is the fact that the folks who are negotiating to own the team here were delayed in that request by not just by CPL but other forces, and there may have been a reason for that, which I may not know, or you may not know, or we may not want to bring to the public's attention. But to say that those individuals, if they succeed, it's a win for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And that's all I would comment in relation to that. But I heard that they were on the ground and they had a very successful meeting with CPL, and the inclusion of the state sport administrators were part of that as well. And I'm hoping that they continue to see positive signs of eventually succeeding in owning a franchise, and that franchise is based here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So look out for the grand announcement to that if it happens, and of course there are persons who will be trying to put feathers in their backs like peacocks to say, well, they were the ones who laid the foundation for that. But no, the hard work and credit would go to a lot of the persons, including Annette Mark, as I said, and a few other persons who were involved, who laid the foundation. The same Annette who at the press conference to announce the new CEO, they discredited and said, she was only appointed politically. But she did, in that a very short time at the Tourism Authority, did some excellent work. And I want to commend her and for that. So, folks, we are now just off the half hour of 11, and I want to remind callers, let's make the program a bit interactive today. The numbers to call are 451-7827, 451-7827, and of course, if you're on WhatsApp, it's 534-7827, 534-7827. You can send your messages in. Monique, I hope you're checking if the message is there, 534-7827. And of course, to call directly is 451-7827. We're going to open the lines and we're going to make the program interactive for those who are willing to add their voice on the record and let us constructively hear how you can add to the debate in the advancement of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Of course, this program is not a long program. It's a program that is very educational, informative, constructive, and we always try to be balanced and to bring accuracy to our listeners as it relates to the developments and what is taking place here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Of course, you will expect us to be critical, and you will expect us to be constructive in our debate and discussions here on the record. So again, we're making the lines available to persons who will want to come in. It's 451-7827, 451-7827, and 534-7827 for those available on WhatsApp.
There's a question. Someone is asking to want to find out if the Cuban doctors, that the reason why they are sending them back to Cuba is because Vincentian's doctors that didn't took the vaccine is coming back to work. If you have any idea or any information, regarding
What's the last point? If they're coming back to?
they said that I guess the persons in authorities is telling the Cuban doctors, all right, that the reason why they are sending them back to Cuba is because the Vincentians who didn't take the vaccine, they are coming back to work.
That's absolute nonsense. And if that is the information that is out there, I want to say this very clearly, and I'm going to make a point similar to that to this on another subject that I'm going to raise a bit later. But we all know why the Cubans are leaving St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You can package it however you want it to. You can say, well, we are trying to have more local doctors in rural areas, and there's a language barrier and so on, and we all know what the challenges are. Clearly, the United States government has literally come down on CARICOM countries. And we have seen it happening in Jamaica, we have seen it in St. Lucia, we've seen it in the other places, Barbados and Guyana and so on. A plane load of Cubans had to leave Jamaica. So we know what the economic pressure is and the political pressure that is there, that is placed on Cuba, the Cuban people. And we know that the US is saying to our small islands within the region, listen, you have to play ball, or we're going to put a squeeze on you. We have seen it with the CBI program. So let us not pretend we don't know what is going on. And you may want to package it, however, for public consumption. We're remodeling the Cuban program. We're trying to see if we can, streamline or whatever, however you want to do it. We know the pressure that is on from the US. And it also shows you the weaknesses, the inherent weaknesses of the state administration, because these are things that they would never dream to try with Comrade Ralph and with the ULP. They would try it with countries that are what I would say politically aligned with them. That whatever the Americans say to do, there are political parties in some countries. You call them sister parties. Like the Jamaica Labour Party and this current NDP are sister parties. The UWP in St. Lucia is a closely affiliated party to the JLP and the NDP. John Compton and Sir James were ranking buddies and family, as a matter of fact. And Edward Siaga from in the period and so on. So they have always had this kind of right wing approach to their politics, which is aligned to the US. And if America say to jump, they jump. And those who refuse to jump will be succumb to the pressure politically and economically. We've seen it with the visa restrictions that are now. They're taking away visas for denying visas for Antiguans and Dominicans. Because these prime ministers have said, look, listen, we are a sovereign country. We do have or should have the right to own economic independence and political independence as sovereign states. Do you hear that kind of language coming from Lauren Friday? You don't ever hear that type of language coming from Lauren Friday. So if America comes here and tell him you have to go get rid of the Cubans, he is going to get rid of the Cubans. Let us not be, second guessing that point. That is a fact.
All right, there's another question. And the person is asking for an update on the pension for the nursing assistants as promised, looking for, right? The 6 nursing assistants already passed who was awaiting a pension. So they're asking if you have any information with regard to the nursing assistance pension.
Yeah, I'm very sorry that those persons died without benefiting from that. But I will tell you, it is going to be a challenge. And I know the way in which the state apparatus is moving right now. It's not just the issue of the pension for NAs, but you have to go to the issue of even the salaries for current employees in the state's administration who have not yet been paid for some months. You want me to be quite frank with you? They're drivers for ambulances who have not been paid since March. I don't know if within the last end of the month they got some of their payments. But there's ambulance drivers who admitted, listen to me, I have not been paid since March. But I can't make any noise because I vote for the people them. But this never happened under Labour. Those were the words coming from an ambulance driver. He's ashamed to even publicly admit that because he has not been paid because it has never happened to him in all his years of driving an ambulance under Unity Labour Party government. The party he supported can't even pay him. I'm wondering how people like that surviving, because if you ain't get paid since March and you going back, you showing up to work every day, or fortnightly, or however the shifts work with the ambulance drivers. I wonder how you benefited, how your family surviving, and you would sit down quiet on that information.
Mm-hmm. So I have another question. So since the government failed to include the statutory bodies in the new bill for pensionable workers, would they now seek to amend each bill for each statutory body?
Well, the statutory bodies will have as a way of practice. I don't think you have to include that within the act, but policy would dictate a decision of the board. Would naturally be formulated into a policy position from these statutory bodies, and who would align themselves with the policy of the government for persons who are in fact eligible for a pension. So I believe the same practice would be adopted across the statutory bodies and boards across St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and that is my thinking that they will align with what the policy is in relation to the act. But it's beyond, and I did raise this in the parliament, and I said, well, we're putting this thing into law, and even the obligation now, the payments have to be made. In fact, the non-pensionable, the gratuity payments, there's a certain window in which once a person dies, it has to be paid within a certain period of time. And the question I then raised, while that is a positive sign, is whether or not the Treasury can cushion that legal requirement. The minister who was the mover of the bill, Sinclair Leacock, did say to me, well, you're quite right. And with the challenges we're facing now, it's something that we'll have to look at how we can shore up the Treasury. It is something that he acknowledged, and I'm hoping that it doesn't become a significant challenge to persons who would naturally benefit from those provisions. But if it is that people who are currently salaried are not receiving their payment on time, it is something that is quite troubling to me, that this can then transfer over into other categories of persons to benefit with a pension or gratuity, and how quickly they can access these funds. Yes, we have a call on the line. Yes, caller, you on the record? And we missed that caller. Yes, the number to call 451-7827, 451-7827, and of course WhatsApp. You're available to make your contribution there as well. 534-7827. We have a call on the line. Yes, caller, you're on the record.
Hello. Yeah, this is Kojo.
Yes, caller, welcome. You're on the record.
All right, on the record, this is Kojo Mason.
Yes, man.
Carlos, I think you said something about the Vinlet Company is a statutory body.
That's
but according to Mr. Weeks on Sunday, he said it's not a statutory body, it's just a company.
Well, it's a limited liability company, but for all intents and purposes, it is owned by the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's a state-administered utility company. The board is appointed by the cabinet. You understand? And the management of that company has to follow the policy that is set by the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Okay. I don't want to make that a big thing. I just wanted to find out from you the between, because I thought it was a statutory, and somebody else thought it was, and then Mr. Weeks said it wasn't. So now I'm hearing it is so.
Yeah, it's a limited liability company. St. Vincent Electricity Services Limited, but it is 100% owned by the state, and therefore by its true intention and makeup, it's administered by the state. The state sets its policy. It's not a private company in the sense of where it's like a Correz or a Wiley Lima Limited. Or a Coach St. Vincent Limited. No, it is fully 100% owned by the state.
The point I was trying to make, because when Friday said that he's asking Vinlet to ease up on the customers, and this is my opinion. This is what I put forward on Sunday. I think that the Prime Minister himself, seeing that he is probably the leader of the country, probably the head of the all government companies or organizations, should be having a meeting with the company and tell them this is what he wants to put forward, instead of coming online and asking them to do it. If you follow what I'm trying to say. And, the way he came on the radio, he kind of like he's been let to do something where he should have the power to tell them that he will let them to do. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. No, you're quite right. And I understand perfectly why you asked the question, and to get clarity on, right. Because what Friday displayed there was an entirely lack of leadership and weakness, and on the part of him as Prime Minister. Because I'll tell you, as you know, and as you sought clarification on, Vinlec, for all intents and purposes, is classified and listed as a state-owned enterprise. It may be a limited liability company, but there's no part of Vinlec that is privately owned. It is 100% owned by the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, though it is incorporated under the Companies Act. And I think that's the distinction that our good friend there was making. It is incorporated under the Companies Act. So it takes the form of a limited liability company. But for all intents and purposes, it is 100% owned by the state. And therefore, its policies must be in line with what the state policy is on energy. And it's board who the CEO answers to. Who appoints the board of Vinlec? Who appoints the chairman and the board of directors? It is the cabinet of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So you can't come to the public, Kojo, and plead and beg with the CEOs. I hope that you take into account as Prime Minister, I'm pleading with you to please take into account the pressure of the people, the poor and working people of the country. It doesn't work that way. VINLEC has to follow good policy initiatives on issue of energy security. That policy falls on the government. And I'll tell you this. Make this point to you, that even if VINLEC wishes and it goes against what the policy of the government is, on the basis that its liability would become too extended, and it needs to ensure that there's capital and to continue its maintenance and repairs and upgrades and so on. You can justify that and push back in an argument, and every CEO will try to do that, because you have to ensure that there's reserve, and you have to ensure that you're able to maintain your generators and upkeep them in good working order. Yes, but if the policy of the cabinet and the policy of the government to your board is to do A, you have to follow that.
Well, that was my opinion, but okay.
But your opinion is 100% correct, Kojo. It is 100% correct. You cannot as a Prime Minister plead and beg with VINLEC to be mindful of the consumers who are poor and working people. You have to tell VINLEC, this is our policy position on energy, and this is the direction we want to go. And you walk it. I'm not saying to walk against VINLEC, and their interests, but to work with VINLEC. And he said, how can we meet you halfway? What is it the government can do to support this initiative? What is it you can do to ensure that we work together so that we don't pass on this pressure on poor people? That is the role of the government. So you're quite right, Kojo. You're quite 100% correct with your analysis on that point.
There is another question. The person is saying thank you for the knowledge and education on these important matters. And what said that we heard that PM Friday resigned as head of CARICOM. Do you know why? SVG time is up. Can you explain?
He's not the head of CARICOM. And he was at one point the chair of the OECS. Usually it's a rotational. The chairmanship of both CARICOM and the OECS are rotational positions where every prime minister, every heads of government will have the opportunity to chair a CARICOM conference. Will have the opportunity to chair for whether it's for 6 months or 12 months, and that is rotated for all across the board where all heads of government are concerned. And there's a subset of that which is OECS. The OECS assembly is usually chaired by a prime minister, and that is a revolving chairmanship.
Okay, there's a call.
Yes, caller, you're on the line. Welcome, you're on the record. We seem to be having a challenge with the program.
Hello? Caller, are you there?
Yes.
All right.
How are you?
I'm pretty fine. Go right ahead with your question.
Yeah. Hey, Carlos, what's happening?
Comrade, I'm good, man. Good to hear your voice.
Can you hear me?
Yes, man. I'm hearing you clearly.
Man. All right, good. Let me ask you something. When are we going to take the kids' gloves off to deal with an 8-month-old government going into 9 months? Because we seem to be stuck on advising and not really critiquing these guys properly. We seem like we're still gun shy about going after these guys where they're making mistakes and seem to be handling them with a pet's glove in terms of, affairs of the state. For example, I heard you this morning saying crime is not an NDP thing, is this and so on. They used it against us. They hammered us. They put up a billboard at Gibson Corner to prevent people from coming to St. Vincent. Look, at some point, take the inners off, without keeping gloves we have on, and really go after these guys. Because let's take, for example, this weekend, the CPL was there. I remember sometime last year, whenever, when the schedule came out, the itinerary came out for West Indies cricket. One of the reasons given for no games in St. Vincent, after we had 3 sold-out games in 2024 with Bangladesh, bottom of the wrong team, no big team, and West Indies there too. After we did, the reason why we can't get games is that we don't have the capacity, the hotel capacity to host. You remember that?
Yes, I recall that. Mm-hmm. But there's look, listen. You know the public knows better than that, and we knew then, as we know now, that there were other forces at play in denying St. Vincent and the Grenadines those games.
Right. So think about it. So that's 2 teams, West Indies, Bangladesh. The West Indies president came out and said we don't have the capacity to host these teams. Meanwhile, we can go on there. We haven't built one extra hotel since. We hosted 5 teams. We were able to accommodate 5 teams.
Five teams plus backroom staff and coaches and so on. Full compliments.
Plus the visitors. You said some CPL guys, some guys, investors went in there to talk to CPL.
Yes.
I mean, Carlos, we got to call a spade a spade. We have got to stop pussyfooting around these guys. You have going on in the hospital now, this infectious spread down there with this bacteria. They try to say the bacterium, but we don't know what it is. Try to make it singular, but we don't know what it is. The point is, there are people responsible for cleaning equipment at the hospital, especially ventilators and so on. What I have read upon that these bacteria get stuck in. So it means proper cleaning of equipment. I am sure in the estimates, and I'm sure in the setup of government, there are people responsible for cleaning these equipment. You are in cabinet. You must know. There have been issues of people politicking down at the hospital who are responsible for doing a lot of this cleaning. Write articles, they up and down politicking, they play part of the union and so forth. So they don't do the job. So when they get an outbreak like this, they try to blame the previous government. I see a lot of them trying to blame the previous government over something as basic as cleaning.
And which was not in case 8 months ago. We certainly did not have this outbreak 8 months ago.
We have some issues here and there, but I mean, we have to call it spade, and we got it. As I said, take off the inners and go bare knuckle with these guys, man. Come on. We got to stop pussyfooting here, man. I hear you saying this morning, yeah, we got to be a responsible opposition. But it doesn't mean that we can't walk and chew gum. Take off the blinkers, man. Take off the gloves. Go hard.
Yes, comrade, I hear you. But it is also,
I know you're capable.
Yeah, our program.
You to be irresponsible.
And that's the point. Our program is one that, I am not going to drag any civil servant or public official through the coals in relation to this. What I would put the blame squarely on, where we have this outbreak is the state's administration handling of it and the way in which the information came to the public. And that is what I expressed. But in relation to the crime situation, I was making the point where Camilo was making the point that the crime is not an NDP issue. They didn't create it. And similarly, when we were in government, we were saying, look, it is not a governmental issue. It is a societal issue. But we have to put the programs in place for it. They then, while in opposition, said they had the answer to crime. They had the answer to all of the major crimes that are taking place. They have a policy on crime. And we are yet to see that policy rolled out. And that is the point I'm making. While they may not be the authors of this, the solutions behind it, they claim to have had it while campaigning in opposition.
Well, let's talk. Let's start the talk. Listen, when we were in government, the Christian Council would say this or that, and then they open them up. Where are they? Do they still have a Christian Council? You don't want to go after them, but these are people who will hold up the Holy Bible, all different versions, this or that. Very quiet for 8 months. Saying anything. I know it's 14 one, and the one is an 80-year-old who celebrated 80 years on Saturday.
Yes, and we have to big up the comrade. Celebrated his birthday.
We got to big him up.
Yeah.
Yes, we have to.
88 on Saturday.
But at the same time, other people outside in and around the country have been down there. They're complaining like crazy, and they're talking to one another. And the movement is taking place on the ground. But when we hit the airwaves now, everybody is singing from the same song sheet. And here we are at Star FM. Our song sheet is resembling the song sheets of NDP FM and the other 97 thing they got, the Coal 97 program. So I don't know. We got to talk, man, and we have to talk with fire in our belly. It's time.
I hear you, comrade. I hear you loud and clear.
All right.
Good one.
Wake up, man. Wake up from this slumber.
I hear you, comrade.
All right. Go.
Thank you for your contribution. And that's a comrade who's in the US. But of course, we have a role to play in ensuring that the program on the record is one that is responsible and provides education, while at the same time we critique and we are critical of what is taking place in relation to good governance here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Just to go back to the point where Kojo was raising and to get some clarity as to who owns VINLEC and the role and function and purpose of VINLEC. And I want to elaborate a bit more on that in the sense that VINLEC is governed by the Electricity Supply Act. It's an act which was passed in the Parliament of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in 1973, number 14 of 1973, had several amendments over the years. The last one, I believe, being in 1987. But this act, Kojo, the Electricity Supply Act, it grants exclusive license to the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Electricity Services Limited to supply electricity, providing for the exercise and performance of functions relating to the supply of electricity and so on. But for all intents and purposes, the company is 100% owned by the state. So while it is a limited liability company incorporated under the Companies Act, it is owned by the state of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Its policy direction is set by the government and the cabinet of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And we have a call on the line. Yes, caller, welcome to the program. You're on the record.
Are you hearing me?
Loud and clear.
Good. How are you doing?
Quite fine, and happy to hear you.
Good. I just want to say, as we all know, they say pressure bust pipe. That is one thing. And I believe at some point in time, because remember it's for 5 years, this guy is going to be in office for. Some point in time, whether now or later on, Vincentian will rise and they will hit the street of Kingston protesting under what pressure they are feeling. So that will happen. I do believe it. But you know, another thing, I am not sorry one bit for them. I am not sorry one bit, God forbid, because you know what happened. Not only that, they vote against him even when he was warning. The Comrade was warning them publicly, both ULP supporters and the NDP supporters. But they also show how much they are ungrateful. Vincentian is ungrateful. They are ungrateful. They are ungrateful. Me have my own relatives, some of them too, who live up build their house. When they lay down on the bed and they look up in the roof, they see red. They see a ULP. They turn and campaign against ULP. No, I wonder where they. So I am not sorry for them one bit. Where everybody don't feel the pressure. Where they feel the pressure.
Yeah, but I do. While you make that point, I do agree that a majority of them by now are regretful. You said they're ungrateful, but I would like to turn that into regretful because the complaints that we're hearing and the concerns that we're getting from all quarters, even people who are traditionally NDP supporters, they would reach out. I was surprised some of the people who reach out to me and say, well, what I'm experiencing now, right. I never experienced this under ULP government.
But Mr. James, it's not like they never know. Yellow does not walk nowhere. Even in Canada, when the NDP used to be in power, they removed the cap from rental. Right now, rent is so expensive. I'm in the rental business, and I could tell you right now, a one bedroom right now without no parking is $2,079 plus hydro.
Yeah.
With parking is $2,174 plus hydro. So NDP doesn't work, whether in Canada, internationally, or locally. NDP, the Yellow Party, they never work for poor people. They never see poor people. And I am thinking that Vincentian would have been smart enough to know that. So even though they regret right now, someone I'm ungrateful for you and they tell so much life on the Comrade.
I was trying to steer you away from that, but I understand how you feel. But as I say, I think they're very regretful at this point.
Yes, man, I've been I am from St. Vincent, and
yes.
I don't me want to retire. And right now, it's like all I'm trying to do is save money. Yes, that if in case God forbid. But the country is really at a standstill. I don't know what's going on in St. Vincent.
Yeah.
Look, they just finished Vincy Mass. I'm coming off soon. They just finished Vincy Mass. But St. Vincent, Vincy Mass was the deadest ever. Look, I look at St. Lucia Carnival just finished. Grenada one is finishing today. And Barbados zone, I don't know if it's finished or whatever. But St. Vincent, for the whole region, Carnival was really sucks. I don't know what's going on. Things just dead. So where they cry, and I hope the mistake that they make the last time gone, last year, November 27th, when the next one come by grace of God, if we should live to see it, that they correct the mistake that they make. Because I'm telling you, pressure bust pipe, a lot of people blood pressure go up.
And it is going to be the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The caller made the very point. At one point in time, the people are going to get up and they're going to say enough is enough. And that is essentially, it has to be a movement from the grassroots. It has to be a movement from people coming from all quarters and all walks of life in St. Vincent and Grenadines, coming and saying, look, listen, I think we made a terrible mistake on November the 27th, 2025, and we have to correct that. And it starts with the people. All right, I want to thank that caller for that contribution. I want to touch on a very interesting topic. I think this is going to be those who are listening, listen attentively to this, because I think this is going to really open the hypocrisy of the NDP government. It is going to show you how you cannot trust these guys and how difficult it is to take them at their word in relation to matters of policy and what they're looking to implement here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I want to take you back to the year 2016. That is going back some 10 plus years ago, when there was an announcement by the former leader of the NDP, the Honorable Adam Eustace, who announced a policy shift to recognize the one China policy. And from that position, what he alluded to then was once the NDP formed the government, they will likely cut ties with Taipei in favor of Beijing in China. And what we gathered then, and what I know, some members of the NDP and high-ranking members of the NDP admitted that they were not even aware of this proposed policy shift. They said, Eustace called the press conference. It caught them off guard. They themselves were surprised by it. And we're talking high-ranking officials within the NDP. Interestingly, while Eustace was speaking on this shift in diplomatic relations, I can also say to you and Leacock, if what I'm saying here is misleading, they could come to the airwaves and defend it and retract, ask me to retract it. But I know for a fact, while the NDP was heavy on the discussion of the one China policy and shifting to China, Leacock himself had a backdoor relationship with the local Taiwanese embassy. I know that for a fact. There was high-level communication, strong communication. And in a sense, he was playing the double game. Because while at the time the NDP said their policy position is that they're moving to China, Leacock was there securing scholarships for people to go to Taiwan. Leacock was there engaging with the Taiwanese embassy and quietly negotiating for support for things that he likely, was doing and advancing. Under the succeeding NDP leadership, Lorraine Friday and a delegation visited China in 2018, 2 years after Eustace announced the shift. Friday said then in 2018, we need to engage in activities that are consistent with the recognition of the one China policy. He visited China in 2018. And in 2018, when he was asked by a local journalist, it was noted that the Unity Labour Party administration has said the relationship with Taiwan is based on principle. And when asked what informs the NDP's relationship with China, Friday said, well, what is the principle that they're talking about? I don't know what is their principle. There are many principles. And the point is that we have 178 countries in the world that accept the one China policy. This is something that is not some sort of far out position. It is the United Nations position. So that is a principle that most countries in the world accept. And up to 2 years ago, in 2024, Friday's position was very clear. He said the relationship with Taiwan is subject to reassessment. So up to 2 years ago, he had not formulated in his mind that we are not going to move from Taiwan. It is subject to reassessment. And in 2018, he was very clear that if 178 countries in the world accept the one China policy, it is only natural that the NDP would accept that. But I want to say something. In March of 2026, the same Leacock who had a backdoor relationship with Taiwan and the embassy here, the local embassy, when the NDP was talking about China, was the first person to visit with a delegation to Taipei. And he said then the two nations should advance beyond friendship to family. We at that point had not yet had a clear, definitive position from Lorraine Friday, who was Prime Minister. So perhaps this sudden visit now to Taiwan by the Prime Minister and a delegation, it is something that we find very interesting. And the question we have to ask, did a certain official from a government close to us, a first world country, visit St. Vincent and the Grenadines and had meetings with the NDP and cautioned them about not moving away from Taiwan and joining ranks with China? That's the question I have to ask. Did a certain official visit from a very close, geographically close first world country and caution the NDP and said, if you make that move, it is going to be problematic. You cannot move to China. And perhaps we should give Leacock a bit more credit than Friday in relation to maintaining relations with Taipei, because he first visited. And as I'm telling you on the record, he maintained a back room and a back door communication, a channel with Taiwan, while both him and Lorraine Friday were talking one China policy. But the question is there a covert operation within the region, a counter-influence operation to shift countries from any strategic alignment with Beijing? And did they visit St. Vincent and warned Friday about that, which led to his just literally 24 months ago. This relationship with Taiwan had to be reassessed, according to Lorraine. And today, he's in Taiwan. And I say that in context because you have to measure these fellas to their word and what they're saying. You can't be, and especially when it comes to foreign policy, you cannot be flip-flopping. You cannot be a flip-flopper. And it goes to the serious nature of how these fellas operate and their policy position on things. And we have a call on the line. Yes, call. I want to welcome you to the program. You're on the record.
Yes, Comrade Carlos. Good morning. Good morning. Monique, good morning.
Yes, morning. How are you? Or afternoon, rather.
Good afternoon. I always say morning. I don't know the reason why. Thank you for your correction.
Yes.
I just want to say on this morning program that we have, let me wish my comrade, Prime Minister, a belated birthday on our morning program that he celebrates on Saturday. Comrade Ralph, I know that you are listening, and I just want to say how happy I am to know that you celebrate your 80th birthday. But you're not looking like you're 80. Everybody in the comments saying
certainly
that
not.
you look younger than 80.
Yes.
Yes, plenty much younger than 80. And your memory and everything is good intact. So just pick up yourself, comrade. Wherever you are, just pick up yourself. We love you. And we have Stephen Razor, who is in the hospital. We are sending out our prayer for him, and that hope that he don't catch that bacteria that's down there. I spoke to him not about 10 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, they're sending you out. They said, no, he can't go. There's something to deal with his foot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, let us pray and send best wishes to him. Yes.
Speedy recovery.
Certainly.
For him. But comrade, man, I always in the tongue, and when I say I just more go tomorrow in the evening, and I can't walk in the street. But people coming up to me, Lavon, we're really going on. Oh my God, look, teachers have a tech walk in the road because the little side pin they used to get like from the lottery for the children for school or wherever it is. Everything gone. This will have one businessman tell me how his restaurant not making no money. He said things dead. He said, love, when I vote for them, but I regret it. He told me that. He said, hardly anybody coming in. Nobody spending no money because they don't have the money to spend.
Well, that's a telling sign when you have so many teachers. I've never had this or heard of a report of so many teachers on the road doing road cleaning and timekeeping. And that is something you usually reserve, for the parents, the single parent mothers, those who have to buy their little, stuff to go back to school and so on, and they have children to, the teachers are being paid while they're home and summer vacation. No one is saying they can't have a second employment or something, but you reserve that now for the working people who who home and you have 2 children, 3 children to send back to school and so on. But I've heard the reports, I've seen it for myself. Several communities across the country, not just on mainland, but even in the Grenadines, there are teachers out with their pen and paper doing timekeeping. I've never seen the magnitude of that before.
Never, ever. It really, when you see teachers go and take up road work just to make ends meet, it's because things are very hard and nothing in going on in St. Vincent. The place are stagnant. So they have to take that little road work they know where somebody else supposed to get to make ends meet for the children. Because they might have a mortgage paying with their salary. They might have this other paying, and they had enough for send the children to school, which in a while they could have get a voucher in ULP time for go get some books, get some uniform. Nothing again going on.
Yeah.
They're only looking for themselves. Watch a whopper.
I'm telling you.
I tired walk the street and people just coming up to me and saying, yo, where we put where Vincent put themselves in. Why they go out and move this ULP government? Look how the place hard. Come at people balling in her. I just go to the market and there the vendors and them and plenty of them who vote the NDP. They regret it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they say one time. One of them say, imagine I used to bring in my goods to them. I never paid this amount of thing. And look now, this is what I vote for. Comrade is really falling out the bar. Let's have to tell them. I'll say, yellow is the code. I'll take what I'll get in because I can't do anything. Nothing.
Yeah.
I say I'll beg for it, beg for trains and I'll get trains, so I'll have to go it. They say they can't wait. They're balling. Look, Safi and all. He used to get work under ULP. when cricket out on his veil for fly the flag, you think they take him, he complain, he ball. You think they take him? Is a they had a thing for shit like who dress up now? They go get a prize.
Yeah.
And he do his own thing and dress up and win that prize this Sunday night. They didn't want him. All of them run him. He said, can't wait. I said, can't wait. I said, can't wait. I said, you especially take that. Remember, many times I warn you, I talk to you, and you still go and you vote for them, and none of them look, none of them, them even be whole sappy for going in the gang, for go cut grass. They can't even give him like a security job, nothing. They have him out there, they want to have him out there in the sun. I said, take that. That is what they vote for. But comrade, let me try and do what we have to do. Because we know we will be back again and we'll be strong again. So comrades out there, who we vote for the ULP, we know we might be feeling it a little, but we ain't gonna feel it more than them because them conscience beat them and let them go out. The Prime Minister grab gun serve and the last rally we have, he begged them, he warned them, don't vote the NDP. You see we're getting now? Oil price up. This year up. That way up. And none of them ain't saying nothing. Crime rate gone sky high. None of them ain't coming out and saying nothing. But comrade, I am feeling good because I know I ain't vote for them. So me a happy woman.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Comrade, just stay focused.
All right.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for your contribution. I appreciate that. That's Comrade Lavon making a contribution. Yeah, so, it's always interesting to take and to hear the perspectives of everybody. Those who were calling in, you're hearing the comments, what is taking place on the ground with the economy, the business community. Even now you're hearing persons are going out to the road cleaning who have stable government jobs. It's something that is quite unfortunate. But a real measure of what is the economic situation is one thing that Vincentians don't skip on money. They will cut back on everything. But you see Sunset and 3 for 10 and High Road, all the shops them lying off with people, and then you drive through the communities and you see shops are closing early. The rum shops are closing early. Not that I'm promoting the consumption of alcohol and say, drink until everything dry out, but the barrel ends. But the point I'm making, it's a true indicator and a measure of the economic situation is when you drive through the communities and you see as early as what time you see the closing now, 7 o'clock?
7:30.
7:30. Shops that will go until midnight, 11, 12, 1 o'clock sometimes. They're now closing at 7:30, 7.
Even some of the shops, the small business in my area, like who would normally do maybe fried chicken or whatever, some of them don't do that no more.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't do that no more.
So you're seeing there are different indicators and measures that you can employ to get a real true picture of what is taking place out there, the economic situation. And remember when I told you, this is not about the debt. It's about how you manage the economy and how you find the resources to ensure that there's not just a trickle-down effect, but also you can afford to maintain the payment of salaries and so on for public servants. I gave you this story of this ambulance driver, and he's not alone. There are several of them who have not been paid for how much months. And these are the concerns that will eventually, as the caller said, the pressure will burst the pipe, and they will eventually happen. We have a call on the line?
Yes, we do.
Yes, caller, you're on the record. Welcome.
Yes, hello, good afternoon, Mr. James. How are you doing?
Quite good. Good to hear you.
All right, great. I don't know if you mentioned before because I kind of started kind of late-ish. Do you know if you had mentioned anything about the CPL, the cost of CPL to St. Vincent and Grenadines?
Well, we're still awaiting that figure. I am hearing, I've not confirmed this, but I'm hearing that the figure is now moving closer to 1.5 to $2 million. In terms of when you tally not just the exemptions but subsidies, and what is paid out to various parties who are part of the makeup in terms of the hosting of the events. So I am hoping that we can have some transparency in relation to that, and they can disclose what the actual the true value is. But I am told that it is a figure moving closer to 1.5 to upwards to 2 million when you tally exemptions and so on in relation to that. And I am hoping that the fees that CPL charged to come into the door, that we also collected from them the withhold. If it is that went to the CPL makeup as a company, that they were able to leave with us the withholding taxes, and that as well was not exempted as part of the subsidy. Because when you look at what the leakage is, not just what the country spent in preparation for the activity, but what they lost in relation to the hosting of it, and the withholding taxes as well. Even the players who come in and are being paid, there's withholding tax. It's a package of exemptions which, when you add that to what we spent, can easily may have gone, I'm told unofficially, beyond 1.5 to $2 million.
Wow. So then we could call that, we could say that what's a whopper? Huh? What's a whopper?
Well, the beauty about that is, the very NDP criticized when we went about the expenditure to rehabilitate the Annisville playing field. We did this in 2007, and we did this just recently for the ICC World Cup, and they were very critical of it. We should not look at Jamaica. Jamaica didn't spend to host any World Cup. Why are we trying to host World Cup here, and put the money where the pain is. But there's more pain right now being felt. There's a more dire economic situation now. Vinlec by itself, with the lack of what I would say direction from a policy position from the government in subsidizing the cost of fuel and the fuel surcharge from Vinlec, people are feeling it harder now than they felt it during the time when we went about the repairs and spent money to host various activities to make the facility work. So all of a sudden, I believe things are so much better now that we can afford to lose on the monies that we have let leave the country in subsidies and so on to hosting the weekend of activities.
Yep. I remember those words when Mr. Friday was talking about, Jamaica's going to take the money and spend it in the economy. Why couldn't St. Vincent do the same thing? But I said, and look at what they're doing now, So, but it's a shame what is going on. I heard someone called Nice Pretty last Friday, and they're saying, the crime in St. Vincent, they are still blaming the former administration. They planted the tree, now it's being nurtured. They have to take the blame. I said to myself, so I wonder when all the good things are happening with the airport running good, the port coming, and all the tourists coming to Sydney, are they going to take the credit for it? They should say, well, the former government did all this. They're not going to want to give them the credit for it. But it's crazy. But I also want to say that even though the Comrade is out, somebody need to take the boy on the radio station. We need to get this station most every day somebody on, because everybody looking forward to the Comrade yesterday, probably today, tomorrow.
Yes.
Somebody need to take the void. As I was doing my walk this morning, I was saying to myself, what happened to all the former ministers was in government? Why don't some of them come and pick part and say something? I know some of them might not in politics anymore, might not run that the next time, but
Mhm.
still, they need to come on the
And they do have a contribution to make, because at the end of the day, the country belongs to all of us, and we have an opinion,
All
and
of
we
us. Yes.
we ought to
Whether you
whether
vote or not.
constructively or otherwise, you know.
You should, yeah. Come in there. Show them
Mhm.
that we're still in the battlefield. We're out there fighting for you guys. So I don't think we shouldn't have any void program.
No, you will hear from the comrades very soon, man. They will be mounting the station and on various programs very soon.
Yeah, but we just don't want to hear them on election call.
Yes,
Then they all
yes.
come out now from the woodwork.
Yes.
Now you want to hear from them